Welcome back to Local Edition. I'm Brad Pomerance. Thanks for joining us again. Our guest is Mike Feuer. Mike is a member of the California State Assembly. Sir, we thank you so much for joining us.
Always great to be here, Brad.
Absolutely. I want to talk about the state budget crisis. We have one yet again. And I want to look back and see how we've papered over those problems and how we're going to do it today. In the past, a lot of debt was piled up to try to paper over the budget problems. And now we know that our debt has just soared. We're now number 7 and our debt ratio used to be number 22. Are we going to avoid piling on more debt just to close a budget gap?
Yes, we can do it. I mean,
will we do it? That's my question.
What hangs in the balance is whether a couple Republicans in each of the two houses in Sacramento decide to let the people choose for ourselves whether we want to temporarily extend some existing revenues or not. I support Governor Brown's approach, which is very straightforward. Let's finally solve our structural problem. Let's do it through some very painful cuts. Unfortunately, they're devastating, but we need to make them right now to balance our budget. Couple that with temporarily extending existing revenue for a few years, postponing tax cuts until we can better afford it in the state. We need 2 Republicans in each house to say yes to that.
Well, let's talk about that. Let's say, for argument's sake, either you don't get 2 Republicans in each house, or the voters vote no in June.
Right.
Then what?
Well, then things get pretty awful. I think the governor is likely to submit a budget that would rely on exclusively cutting through programs to balance our budget. I'll give you a sense of the magnitude of what that looks like. When I took office just 4 years ago, the general fund was about $105 billion in California. If we had to solve our current problem with all cuts, it would be 55 in 4.5 years, 105 to 55.
How is it that the state of California's revenue has dipped? What you're basically saying is 50%.
Yeah, no, it's been, well, look, the recession has had a crippling effect on our economy, which relies so heavily on real estate, construction. The foreclosure crisis hit California particularly hard. Property tax revenues declining.
So let's talk about this then. I mean, it seems then that we are collecting revenue in a foolish way. If literally a recession that was admittedly dramatic could cut our revenue in half.
Well, it's a function of several things, obviously, but ultimately for California, we need a more stable tax structure, a more reliable one. And we do, for example, rely too heavily on elements of taxing that are subject to changes in the economy. I support evening out our tax structure.
But we've talked a lot over the last few years, and we've heard you and others say that.
Yeah.
You know, it didn't seem like much was going to happen under the Schwarzenegger years. Could you really see some bona fide tax reform to even out the way we collect revenue? Because it's not working, sir.
I support that. And I think we need to be doing it. And the question is, can we do it? I think it's not going to happen between now and ideally a vote on the budget by the people in June. But it could happen this year. It could happen early next year. There needs to be some evening out of that structure.
Could it ever happen in the era of term limits?
Yes, absolutely.
I guess I'm skeptical.
Yeah.
I guess I'm skeptical because there's a lot of fear in the era of term limits that you're always looking for your next job. And if you have one vote that could be seen as anti-whatever the position is, you're out. You don't get your next job.
Well, but there's a lot of conversation about a different set of ideas. For example, one could conceive of temporarily reducing some of our sales tax, for example, in exchange for broadening the base of things that we decide to tax. Might that be a good idea?
What about the internet? There's been some discussion about taxing internet sales.
And I support that. I think that's really tough on our brick and mortar businesses here in California. A lot of small businesses, when people can buy out of state and avoid paying tax. Now, they should be paying tax. There's a thing called the use tax in our tax code, but it's basically ignored.
Who pays on Amazon.com the use tax? I mean, it's virtually impossible to collect.
So we need to acknowledge the internet economy is here. It's important. It's viable. By the same token, we do need brick and mortar businesses here, and they're at a real disadvantage. So I support evening out that playing field.
Okay, his name is Mike Feuer. He's a member of the California State Assembly. My name is Brad Pomerance. Thank you again for joining us on Local Edition. We're going to send you back to HLN.